Hey friends, welcome to the Full Life Podcast. I'm Zach Bowden, a certified Clifton Strengths Coach, spiritual director, marriage coach, and leadership coach. And let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt spiritually stuck? Like you're praying or reading the Bible or going to church, but you still feel disconnected from God? If so, you're not alone. I mean, life moves fast, and it's easy to get overwhelmed, discouraged, or caught in patterns that hold us back. But there's good news. You don't have to stay there. Coaching and spiritual direction are powerful tools that help you break free from what keeps you stuck and move you toward a life that you were created to live in, and one full of joy, clarity, and purpose. And that's what this podcast is about, helping you move from just surviving life to thriving in life. And so today I'm joined with my good friend and fellow certified spiritual director Elisha Lima, and we're diving into a rich conversation about what is spiritual direction, how it differs from counseling, and how can it be a meaningful part of your journey with God. So let's get into the conversation. I think you're going to be encouraged today. And so, Elisha, thanks for being part of the pod, and I'm glad to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting me join you.
So let's just jump in. What is spiritual direction, and how would you describe it to someone who's never heard of it before?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like I do get that question often.
I do too.
I think it's not something that a lot of people are acquainted with, and I think when they hear spiritual direction, I've actually had people ask me like, "Oh, is it like Reiki healing? Do you read chakras?" And I was like, "Oh, not quite." Um, but the way I describe it to people is all of us have thoughts about God. All of us, for the most part, have had experiences where we feel like we've encountered God, or we've tried to reach out to God, or maybe we felt like God responded. And spiritual direction helps you find those signposts, because I think often people have a lot more thoughts on God or feelings about God than they realize, and how that directly connects to their life today. And whether you are going to a church regularly, whether you had a faith but kind of had a falling out for one reason or another, most people have ideas about God or have thoughts about God. And it's worth exploring because there's so much to talk through and think through and have moments for pausing. And so what it is you come into an office like this, and we have moments for praying, for reading through a scripture. I'll maybe ask you questions about it. We'll have a moment to pause and maybe um, see if any thoughts come up, any feelings come up, and we just talk through those things. And it's really something beautiful to experience, and it maybe seems a little abstract or different if you've never experienced it, but if you haven't experienced it, I would highly recommend you trying it, because it is something really beautiful and really special.
Yeah, that's good. The way I describe it to people, just a different way to look at it and a different lens point, same idea. I say in the midst of life, of family, of responsibilities, it's easy to neglect your soul, which leads to stress, discouragement, just maybe just spiritually being dry.
Mm.
And spiritual direction or a spiritual director has usually faced those things as well in their life and in their own relationship with God. And they can offer a safe place for you to receive empathy, guidance, and maybe some practical tools to help you walk with Jesus and to deepen your relationship with Jesus and navigating emotional health in a healthy in a way. And so that's how I describe it. You do yours in your office. I do mine in person. I do mine on Zoom or video chat as well. But it really is a place to help. The way I describe it again, is help somebody who might feel like they're neglecting their soul and it's leading to these byproducts that they know aren't helping in their life. And so having somebody come alongside, offer empathy and a safe place for you to process how to reconnect with God in a meaningful way.
Absolutely.
And so, but what I hear both of us saying in our different definitions, and hopefully it's a safe place where people can really explore and deepen their relationship with God in ways that maybe when you go to church, you might not experience, or you go to a small group, or maybe a chance to have your friends. It's a chance to really have somebody just help you navigate, hold your hand, or kind of guide you through a process of helping you just re-engage in a relationship with God, where it's for the first time, or somebody who's walking with God for a long time. Would that be true?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how would you just say spiritual direction is different from counseling or therapy? I get that one often too. Aren't you just a therapist that talks about God?
It's really funny because my husband is actually in school for his master's, and so we talk about this often.
Okay.
How therapy or counseling is very different. I would say, especially in the dynamic, because in spiritual direction, there is more of a mutuality. It's not like I'm the director, I know more, I'm higher than you, I'm more mature than you. It's like I'm your friend, I want to be your companion. Whereas counseling and therapy, there is a dynamic of you're coming asking for my help. I do have training, I do have skills. It's in your best interest to listen to the things I say and take my expert opinion. And yeah, in spiritual direction, it's much more like companionship and friendship, and where there are moments to speak into people's lives and be like, well, what if you tried this? It's always an invitation rather than like a prescription, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So often I think in counseling, you're going to go back and deal with things in your past. You got to find healing. You got to rip the Band-Aid off. And you need a doctor
We do.
to help you unpack it and find healing. But spiritual direction, like you said, is to me, it's been this thing like, hey, we're just in this together, and we're going to create a safe place together where God is ultimately the one who's going to show up and have dialogue with us, and we're just creating a space for that to happen.
Where I feel like it's interesting because sometimes I think the power dynamic of counseling or therapy makes people feel a little bit more reassured in that idea that, oh, you're just going to tell me what to do a little bit. And in spiritual direction, it's like, well, what do you hear God saying to you? And so it's much more about the directee or the person really hearing from God themselves and really taking the initiative from the Lord themselves. And that can feel really intimidating, or it can be scary because you're like, well, what if I get it wrong? And I think one of the beautiful things about spiritual direction is I don't think you really can get it wrong. When your heart is to hear the Lord and when your heart is to make a connection with Jesus, I think it's pretty hard to get it wrong. I think you really have to be way out there. And that's where your spiritual director comes in and uses discernment too to be like, well, let's talk about that. And are you sure? So, yeah, I appreciate that because it really feels like you're taking time to explore your relationship with God, with a friend. Yeah. And often we get so much in our minds about a relationship with God or how we think things are playing out, and we don't often invite people into those inner thoughts and those tracks that are playing. So when we do, and someone can offer a different perspective or a fresh take on it, or new insight, it can be really helpful. But often we don't do it. We just don't. I think often we just don't have time.
Yeah.
So I think to take time with spiritual direction is just so helpful because, like anything, our relationship with the Lord really needs tending to in time, and that's something that we really don't give enough time and attention to.
Me too. I get busy. I got things to do. All the things I want. Yeah, it just makes it hard. So I would love to hear from you, Elisha. Like, what got you interested in spiritual direction? And maybe even how you why? Why are you? Where did this process start for you?
So for me, it started because my husband and I were missionaries for many years in Asia and in South America. And now we work with our missionary agency remotely. And we are member care directors of our organization. And so we really wanted to have tools to better be able to care for our workers on the field because they give up so much and they sacrifice so much to love the Lord and work on, fulfilling the Great Commission. And just like us, they can be pouring out, pouring out, pouring out, and they're not
Yeah.
refilling. And so my heart for spiritual direction was first and foremost to help give room for our missionaries to take time to make sure that they're tending to their relationship with the Lord, or if they are in a dry season, that they don't feel alone or ashamed or embarrassed because it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And just be able to have tools to come alongside them and encourage them and love them and help them go farther and longer and stronger.
Yeah. It's good. For me, it was, I can remember about 10, 12 years ago, I started reading some books, spiritual formation books. And one of the words that often come up in there is having a spiritual director. And they would talk about it. And it's one of those things like I could read it on a page and it made sense, but it didn't translate to actually what does that look like. And so over the last 10 to 15 years, trying to not just understand something on a paper wise or a cognitive wise, but try to really understand it holistically to actually experience spiritual direction has been an interesting journey for me, just to understand what it feels like to have somebody that I could really help guide me in my connection with God, my relationship with Him. And so even yesterday, I was meeting with my spiritual director, and I just walked away feeling happier, more encouraged, feeling man, that somebody sees me and knows all the things going on in my life, and that God loves me and sees me in those things. It's so helpful because I don't always have the relationships in my life where I can have those conversations and stuff. And so somebody who could just focus and give me, help me is really, really helpful. And so that's kind of where my journey started, was reading it and going like, I want to learn, not just read about it, I actually want to experience what some of these authors are trying to encourage me to do in my life. And so maybe the other question I would have for you is, what does it mean not just to receive spiritual direction, but for you, what does it mean to be able to offer it spiritual direction to other people?
I'll say first, I guess, to receive it. But I think, like you, I love seeing my spiritual director. I do. I always leave feeling very encouraged, and often I know it can feel a little bit like scheduling a doctor's appointment. It's like I'm not really sure what we're going in here for, but it feels like a health check. And sometimes I have things that I want to talk about, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm not really sure, and let's just see what God has for us. And I love both because I find that when I have something that's really been bothering me or troubling me, and I could bring it before the Lord with my spiritual director, she's just so slow to hurry the conversation, and she's just so thoughtful and empathetic, and she just really takes time to listen and to allow me to try to hear from the Lord. And I love that. And I feel like for me, that's helped me to slow down in my everyday life and hear from the Lord as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my favorite aspects of spiritual direction, is it helps me like open my eyes, it feels like, and to see God's hand moving where before I felt like my vision was dull.
Yeah.
And giving spiritual direction, I really, really enjoy it. When I first started, it felt very nerve-wracking, like, oh my goodness, I'm walking with someone. This can feel very like a big responsibility. But now, after time, I realize that really Jesus is a spiritual director. The Holy Spirit's a spiritual director. God's a spiritual director. And I am here to sit with a friend and to, yeah, have time with my friend for them to make a connection with God. And so, um, being able to be a spiritual director is really life-giving to me because I
Mm.
also get to journey with people and see how God does things and how he works in a really quiet way sometimes, and then
Yeah.
in other times like just straight to the point and
Yeah.
really, and so it feels like an honor to be a spiritual director because I get to see beautiful glimpses into people's painful moments, their happy moments, and it
Mm.
feels like a real gift.
Yeah. It's so good. What I've enjoyed about offering spiritual direction to people um, is I don't have to have all the answers. I don't need to control the outcomes, but I can create an environment where we could do some exercises, we could do some spiritual practices together, where somebody who walks in, maybe feeling tired, overwhelmed, lonely, hurt, whatever, fill in the blank,
Hmm.
can walk out and hopefully, not all the time, but most of the time, I would say, they walk out feeling loved by God.
Absolutely.
And so all the things that we all feel just because of life that carry us and carry us down or hold us down, usually let go in a meaningful, significant way that somebody could re-enter life with a little less baggage, a little less burdens that they feel just they experience God's love in a really meaningful, significant way. And so that's one of my favorite things, like just to watch and observe and just to be a part of the conversation. But it's really between that person and God. I just get to be a part of helping maybe facilitate pieces of that. And so that's what I really enjoy about it. And so what are some reasons somebody might seek out spiritual direction? Have you come to realize as you interact with people?
Um, so I've had people seek me out for spiritual direction who have worked in ministry and who've maybe been hurt by other people in ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because often those lines can feel like they get really blurred between ministry, God, calling, these people, my coworkers. So if there's like a break in relationship or in employment, it can feel like like your relationship with God has
Yeah.
broken.
Yeah.
Um, I've also walked with people who they've struggled with their health and
Hmm.
they've felt as though they had really cried out to the Lord and that the Lord didn't hear them or didn't heal them.
Yeah.
And so walking through how do if I really believe in God, I know He's real, I know that the Bible is real, I trust all of that, but I feel like God doesn't see me and I don't
Hmm.
trust Him.
Hmm.
Um, and also people have come who just, they had experienced spiritual direction before, they enjoy it, they enjoy having a time and a place to hear from the Lord in a different setting than sermons or
Hmm.
podcasts and books. Um, and so there's all sorts of reasons. I've even offered spiritual direction to people who don't attend church.
Hmm.
And those have also been very beautiful, enriching experiences, not just
Yeah.
for myself, but for the directee as well. And
Yeah.
so, I really believe that
Hmm.
everyone can benefit from spiritual direction. You don't just have to be a missionary or a ministry worker or going to
Yeah.
church regularly. Um, I really believe everybody has places where they sense God moving or they sense God's presence or they want to. And
Yeah.
they have a longing and a desire. And so that's really what spiritual direction for me has been.
Yeah, that's good. For me, the people I usually towards and navigate towards me, ministry leaders who I've been full time ministry for 20 years now, and so I get the challenge of trying to be a Christian and do God's work, and sometimes those lines get really blurred together. And so somebody who's trying to really identify to really grow in their relationship with God and in the midst of ministry is really helpful. And so maybe there's pastors. I have numerous pastors I meet with on a regular basis. People who maybe hit a spiritual wall in their life, who've maybe the spiritual practices that they've been doing for so long just aren't working anymore. And they have felt like, well, this is just what my relationship with God is now. It just feels distant and cold, and maybe one day that first love might come back, but the practices that I do right now aren't helping me. And so helping people explore new spiritual practices that help them re-engage in a relationship with God that's meaningful and significant are ones that are helpful. So if you're hitting a spiritual wall of some sort, I love having those dialogue or creating those environments for people to re-engage with God. And then for me, I think people who are just stressed. They're stressed and busy in life, and they just know they just can't keep going the way they are. And they got to figure out how to reevaluate life and reorient their life a little bit. And so spiritual practice becomes a little bit of a breath of fresh air in the midst of craziness that they have. And that could be just a mom at home with her kids and it's all crazy, or it could be, people who are just really busy and but just realize like they need some help in the midst of their business and craziness. So those are your reasons. There's lots of reasons people might reach out for spiritual direction, but those are just some of the reasons, especially the things that you and I probably do that are different that help reconnect with people in a meaningful way and stuff. So let me just add on to that. What would you, someone who might be interested in spiritual direction but not sure, or maybe even doesn't know what it really is, they heard this podcast and they're going, what is this? What would you say to someone to encourage them to consider spiritual direction as part of their spiritual growth?
Yeah, I guess I think I would encourage you that we aren't meant to do the journey alone. And often our spiritual walk can feel very solitary. And it's a personal relationship with you and God. It's a personal relationship just between the two of you. And yes, but even Jesus did things in community, and we're meant to do things in community. And obviously we want to have safe people speaking into our lives, and we want to have people who have been trained, who have lived the Christian life as well, if that's so I would say that there is so much beauty and enrichment in doing the journey with people. And I think that would be my encouragement, that if you feel, like you had said, dry, if you feel hurt, if you feel discouraged, if you feel tired or run down, there is room and there's space for you in the Lord's presence with a spiritual director. And there's empathy, and there are thoughtful questions, and it's not hurried because the Lord isn't in a hurry. And that would be my encouragement, that we're all on a journey, and we're all on our journey of life, and often we can get just like a horse with our blinders, and we're not seeing the things around us. And it's helpful for someone to come alongside of us and point out a flower that maybe you've overlooked for a while. Or point out a new fork in the road that maybe you've just been in a loop and you haven't been able to spot. And just to have that companionship on the journey. No one likes walking a hike or a trail all on their own all the time. It's refreshing to have somebody with you, to have someone to talk with. And that is what it's like to invite a spiritual director in.
The way I would add to what you said, we all need people in our lives. We need friends, we need companions to go along. But just like I don't trust myself to do my financial planning for my life, I have somebody who helps me do that. It helps me make wise decisions
Or my taxes
or
are
my
on my name.
taxes, all that, like, right? Again, but we need people who are experts in areas of life who can help us. And and so we need a tribe of people who can help you in most significant areas of your life. And so if you feel stuck, if you feel lost, if you feel hurt, if you are feeling distant from God or wanting to go deeper but not sure where to go, or any of the things we've talked about, spiritual director is a really good person to have in your corner to help you to help you re-engage with God, or help you grow in relationship with God, help you find healing, or whatever those things are and stuff. So it's for real people, and it's for real life. People like you and me, just who need help noticing God in our lives in a meaningful way. And so one of the ways I like to think about spiritual direction is how Jesus models it. And I think there's this powerful moment in Matthew 24, I mean, sorry, Matthew 14, 27 through 34, where the disciples are caught in a storm and Jesus is walking on water towards them. And let me just summarize the story here. The disciples are out in a boat. They're struggling against waves and the wind. And Jesus comes out walking on water, and they're terrified, which rightly so. And Jesus says to them, "Take courage. It is I, Jesus. Don't be afraid." And Jesus asks, Peter asks to come out, and Jesus invites him. And Peter walks on water for a moment, and Jesus immediately catches. I'm sorry. Peter begins to sink, and when he sees the storm around him, Jesus immediately catches him and immediately asks, "Why did you down?" And they return to the boat, and Jesus calms the wind, and the disciples worship him. And so there's a lot happening in that passage and all those things there. But here's the question I have for you, Elisha, we could talk about for a few minutes as we wrap this up. Um, how do we see Jesus modeling spiritual direction in this passage, in this story? What do you hear? What do you notice about Jesus as a spiritual director in this passage?
Yeah, I think what first really stood out to me was that the waves and the wind were still going when he walked out on the water.
Okay.
And I love that image of Jesus because I think for some reason in my mind it was like, oh, he's walking and the water's really quiet. And when I reread it, I was like, no, actually the wind and the waves are still going. And that's why Peter got nervous. And so I think that that's a beautiful image of Jesus as a spiritual director because Jesus isn't waiting for the water to be calm to invite you. Like in the midst of the wind and the waves, that is Jesus, a spiritual director, that when you feel like, oh my gosh, we're going to sink, I don't know where that's where Jesus walks out to you and he invites you to trust him.
Yeah, that's so good. Because so often we think God could be distant. We think God could be not there or not present or not in the midst of the storm with us. But he is. He's actually there with us and wanting to navigate all the things there as well. I love that how Jesus doesn't shame Peter for his failure. So often in our world, we just do that. You mess up, you screw up, we condemn people, we shame them, and we guilt them into things. But that's not what Jesus does. And that's not what spiritual direction does. And when you come in and you come to interact with the spiritual director, they're not there to hold your failures over your head or shame you for what you do. We try to really model what Jesus does as a spiritual director. But Jesus immediately reaches out and asks this soul-searching question with grace. And that's what a good spiritual director does. They listen, they reflect, they gently guide without judgment in a meaningful way. Just like you said, that Jesus comes and spiritual directors should enter into somebody's life to listen, to heal, to help, to support whatever that is. You have another thought how Jesus acts as a spiritual director in this passage? You have another thought, Elisha, how Jesus does that?
Oh, sorry, can you say it again?
Yeah, you have another idea how Jesus acts as a spiritual director in this passage?
Um, I mean, yeah, it's like not only is he out there on the wind and the waves, but he invites him out. Like he allows him to come out, and I feel like, yeah, often we can feel like Jesus is like way off in the distance, but we don't feel like he's close enough where he's like drawing us and he's inviting us. And I loved that image of like him and Peter making a connection. And not only that, it's like when Peter starts to sink, it says he grabbed him immediately.
Hmm.
In like almost every translation I saw, it was the word immediately.
Hmm.
And I think often we can feel as though we miss the Lord's hand
Hmm.
in our spiritual life if we're in a storm and maybe something happens and we can feel like, well, where was God's hand? And I think that's the beautiful thing about being able to have a spiritual director and a spiritual friend, because sometimes we can't see the hand because
Yeah.
the waves and the wind are too distracting.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Jesus, as he's offering his hand, I think as a spiritual director, it's beautiful that we could ideally help people see the
Yeah.
Lord's hand reaching out for help
It's
and
good.
help our
Yeah.
friend have a little bit more clarity in their vision.
Yeah. It's good. Well, what's powerful here is it's not what Jesus does, but how he relates to us. He meets fear with his presence. He responds to doubt with grace. He creates space for reflection without rushing in just to fix it. And hopefully that's a good picture of what spiritual direction is. As Jesus is, since we would say the spiritual director to Peter here in the moment, he's offering a sacred space where somebody come in and to experience God in their reality. And so, Elisha, any final thoughts on spiritual direction as we wrap up here?
I mean, I was a stranger to spiritual direction 3 years ago, and now it feels like it's this beautiful garden that's began to flourish in my life, and it's really something just so special and precious. And my desire would be for everybody to experience it, because I think it is beneficial for all of us. And so, yeah, I would just encourage you that if you have heard about it, or you're curious about it, or this is even your first time hearing about it, to try to find a spiritual director, or try to reach out and find a group that does spiritual direction, because it really is such a beautiful, powerful tool. I believe that the Lord has made for his people to draw near to him and really sense him.
That's good. If somebody wanted to connect with you for spiritual direction, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I have an Instagram that is
Okay.
called Soul Friendship with Elisha, and yeah, you can reach out and connect, and we could schedule something, and that would be the best and easiest way.
There you go. I'll also put that in the show notes so you can reach out to her as well. And so again, you can always reach out to me, on my website, Full Life for You, or reach out just directly through whatever way you are listening or watching this podcast. So, Elisha, thank you for being part of the conversation and helping us just dialogue about what is spiritual direction and how it could be helpful so much for our lives. So appreciate your partnership and learning from you and doing this along with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, so thanks so much for joining us on our Full Life podcast. I hope this conversation with Elisha has helped you just understand and maybe grown a little bit of what spiritual direction is, and giving you a clear picture on how it can help support you in your spiritual walk with God. And so again, if you're feeling stuck or even just hungry for more of God, spiritual direction might be the next best step for you. And if you're looking for coaching or supporting on the journey, I love to walk alongside of you. And man, there's 3 ways you can help us even today to be part of what we're doing here. One, share this episode with a friend who might need some encouragement, some clarity in their spiritual journey as we grow closer. You can subscribe to this podcast so you never miss a new episode. Check out Elisha's spiritual direction at her Instagram handle, or you could visit me at Full Life for You to learn more about coaching, spiritual direction, other resources to help you thrive. And so just take a moment today and ask yourself, what would it look like to create a space for you to really listen and connect with God? What if there's more he wants to show you? That you're not just living life, but you are really thriving. So thanks for listening today. And remember, you were made not to just survive, but you were made to experience full life. Thanks, and see you next time.